All right, welcome back to the JELI Cards podcast, where John and I are spreading the love of the hobby. This is episode 79. You can listen to all our episodes on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts, including YouTube now. And if you are enjoying these topics, please give us a rating and a follow on both Spotify and Apple. Morning, John.
Good morning, Jason. What's up?
We got a lot to talk about
Yeah,
because we ran out of time on the last episode.
yeah, exactly.
And we
Per
missed out
usual.
on one complete conversation that we were supposed to have. So I do want to kind of just jump right into it. But I want to talk about this first because I think Topps is getting carried away.
Mhm.
I really do think Topps is getting carried away right now. Obviously, everybody knows Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. They finally had their boxing match. I think they said it was the most streamed sporting event in history. But apparently it was I unfortunately had to go to sleep. I turned it on at like 7:00. I go to bed at like 7:30.
Nice.
So I turned it on at 7 and the stream was fine. Obviously it was just commentary, but apparently once the fight started getting going, it was especially obviously their fight, the main event. I heard it was really bad.
It was horrible. Yeah, it was buffering for like
Did
you
you
couldn't
watch
even
it?
watch. I tried to. I watched the fight before them was by far best fight of the card.
The women's one?
Yeah, the women's fight,
Nice. Yeah.
amazing. They were just exchanging blows left and right. It was awesome. They were
That's
just going
awesome.
in there
Yeah.
throwing haymakers at each other. But yeah, it would be buffering. You wouldn't see anything on the screen, and then eventually it'd just be a blurry kind of catch up video of where they were, and another round has gone by and stuff, and you're not caught up at all. Tons of people were experiencing problems because I think Netflix wasn't prepared for the
Well,
amount of people.
Yeah, and which is crazy too because the WWE Raw is moving to Netflix soon.
Yeah.
So if I was Triple H, I'd be like, "Yo,
Yeah.
let's get this figured out
Sorted.
before
Yeah.
because we just gave you guys like we have this huge deal in place, and Raw is supposed to now go to Netflix every week, and this didn't look too good."
Yeah, really bad. And I think they're doing a NFL game too towards the close to Christmas. I think there's going to be an
Oh
NFL
yeah,
game.
right. Like I think I think you're right. Everyone,
So
it was funny. Like on social media, everybody was posting like Super Bowl clips, like oh Netflix hosting the Super Bowl, and it was like this game winning, and then it just cuts out.
yeah.
Someone did Freddie Freeman's grand slam,
Oh, nice. That's funny.
and right before he hits it, it just cuts out. Well, I also heard some people were like it was out for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was out
Like
for a
some
long
people
time.
were like, I'm like, well, that's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Like this big streaming, which I personally think it was rigged anyways. But
Me too.
did you see some of the video? We'll get into the sport, the topic that I want.
Once again.
Did you see like where people were posting his training videos or
Yeah.
posting videos of past like old Mike Tyson, and then they were showing it in his fight against? It was like the same thing where certain counters he would have knocked Jake's head off,
Agree.
and you saw he pulled them.
Yeah. He was
He
pulling
was
punches.
pulling his punches.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Come on, like how
Super
can you not sit there? It's probably easier for a non-boxer to pull a punch, but when you get a legend of the sport in Mike Tyson, it's very obvious when he should have knocked him out.
Yeah. Yeah. People did like breakdowns of the actual fight too. Of like there was a moment where like I think early on in the fight that Tyson was making good counters, making good contact. And then I think they clenched up and
They
people think,
clinched up, and
yeah.
everyone was like, Jake was clearly told him like, hey, you need to
pump the
back off
brakes.
because after that, yeah, it was just you could see it on his face. Apparently, like everyone was like, oh my god, his walkout was so sad.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But you can kind of see it on his face. He looked like he didn't want to be there, and I think it's because he knew he was going in and he had to lose.
Yeah.
He probably just told him like, listen, I'm not going to be like these other guys and get knocked out for you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'll pull my punches. You can point me, but I'm not losing. Or like I'm not losing by a knockout. You're not knocking me out.
I agree. Or
And
at
I
least
just
that's my conspiracy theory that I'm sticking
yeah,
to.
yeah. But what I wanted to get into is, of course, like in recent fashion, Topps jumps on this opportunity
Yep.
to make a new card for Topps Now. And it was the when Mike Tyson at the weigh-in slapped Jake across the face. And now that card is a Topps Now card, which is already sold out on the Topps website. And it is also a 101 and it has autos. And my first question to you is, how the hell did Topps get this auto from Jake right away that said it's Jake Paul's auto, and then it says under it didn't hurt with an
Yeah.
exclamation mark. This came out like a day or so like after the fight. Like how did they get a hold of like Jake that quick to say, hey, we're printing this card, we need you to sign this, and we're pumping it out because this needs to be a sports card now.
No, I think. Well, I take it easy. I don't think. I think it's gonna be a redemption. I think that they're gonna kind of.
Okay,
Yeah. I'm
yeah.
assuming it's just like a printed image where whatever. Maybe
Oh,
he told
sorry,
them to.
I should have read it. It does say it's a redemption, yeah, an inscribed,
Yeah.
but still, like,
Yeah.
does this
Exactly.
did this need a card?
No, man.
No,
Absolutely not.
no, it did not.
But it's sold out. It's sold out, and each card was like $12 or something like that.
Yeah, because like just that's the hobby. Like they're gonna have out of 99s, out of 49, out of 25, out of 10, out of 5, and a 101 and a 101 gold.
You think? Okay, kind of hobby question there. You think who's buying these? I'm assuming like people who follow Jake on YouTube. But then that led me to think about boxing cards and like the boxing cards area of the hobby. I'm
Would you want this?
no,
Like
I
if you
would
were a
not.
true boxing, like if you were a Mike Tyson collector,
Right.
would you want this, especially after he
I would not.
lost?
Yeah, exactly. And would I pay $12 for it? Are you absolutely
What do you
not?
think this card's gonna go for when it sells raw? Like once they actually get this in hand, 101. Is this if this card
That's a
breaks
good
five
question.
figures, I'm gonna be very upset with the hobby.
Why? You should be happy with the hobby.
This card should not be a 5-figure card, but it's going to be. And you know who's gonna buy it?
Jake.
Jake's gonna buy it, or
Yeah.
Logan's gonna buy it.
Yeah.
One of them are going to buy this card because they're gonna need it, and they're gonna make it. They're gonna Either one is going to try to make this the best
Yep.
like Topps Now card. Like they're gonna say like I'll pay $100,000 for
Bounty.
this card.
Yep.
Yep.
They're gonna start putting bounties on the one of ones, the out
Yep.
of fives, whatever, especially the autos too.
Yep. I'm assuming Jake or Logan is gonna buy this card.
Yeah,
And they don't
good
even
call.
need to try to get it. They're just like you said, I'm gonna put a bounty out. I'm gonna put a 6-figure bounty, and someone's gonna be like, yeah, 6 feet, sure.
Yeah, got it. No problem.
Yeah, right. I mean, because like the Olympic one, I mean, obviously the auto still hasn't surfaced.
Yeah,
Crazy.
what's up with that?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Someone's hiding it somewhere.
Interesting, right?
Someone's in the woods somewhere. Just I'm not showing this card.
Yeah,
But yeah, I wanted to start off with that because I just think it's not. It wasn't necessary. It
I
wasn't
agree.
necessary. But clearly this is the route that Topps is now going to go. And I
Hmm.
mean, I don't blame them for it.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, if you're having like these major sporting events now, like obviously the UFC just had like the John Jones ones too. Like, I mean, I could see even something where I'm surprised Topps now isn't printing one of Jones handing Trump the belt
Oh,
and
yep.
Trump holding the belt,
Exactly.
and
It
that
might
being
happen.
that being a card. Like they're gonna look at these opportunities, and I mean, it's nice to see that they're putting Topps now on the map because
Hmm.
Topps now was like
Yeah.
nobody bought it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody bought that set. But it's not even like a set anymore. They're just printing just one at a time,
Milestones. Yeah, different
milestone
like
cards. So it's smart from a business aspect and like I guess a hobby aspect. It's extremely smart, but I just think it's like
yeah.
I
it's a
don't need
money
it.
grab. Yeah,
Yeah, it is a money grab. I don't
it's
need it.
absolutely a money grab. I'm not
Yeah,
interested in it at all. And like you said, even if I was a boxing collector or a Mike Tyson collector, I'm not looking for this card.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah, it's like you said, it's going to be Jake's following. Like
yeah,
that's what's gonna. It's not going to be a. You're not going to get those heavy, boxing collectors out there, those fighting collectors out there who are going to want this card because I'll bet you nobody was happy that Mike Tyson had to lose the fight.
same. Yeah, it was really
Had
sad.
had to lose.
Had to lose.
We know it was
Exactly.
rigged. We know it.
Rematch in
I,
somebody's backyard.
yeah, let's roll it back and
Yeah.
not make it scripted, and that fight doesn't get out in the first round.
Yeah, man. It was so cool watching the training videos from Tyson. I was like, dang, man, he'd kick my
He's like
ass.
what? I think he's 50. I think he's 58.
58. Yeah.
He's 58 years old. He still moves like he's in his 30s.
Yeah. Did you watch any
Like
of the Netflix episodes of kind of leading up to the fight and the training?
no, I should have. I should have
Yeah,
done.
man. He got in really good shape, and
Yeah,
it was sad to see him walk out by himself.
yeah.
Because obviously, yeah, Mike Tyson's a badass. Known badass.
I mean, I am not a Jake Paul fan by any means. I don't like his whole antics. I don't like this, him calling Tyson out and saying this is my sport now, and like,
Yeah,
really,
man.
dude, come
I
on,
know it's
you fought one real boxer and you lost.
yeah.
Every other fight was a gimmick fight. I'm a big Logan fan though. I really do like Logan a lot, especially what he's done in the WWE. So give me some tops now of Logan.
Might happen.
Why didn't we get a when he won his US title in the WWE? I would have got that one.
Oh God.
I would get if I could get a Logan, like if he, I don't know, he doesn't have any wrestling cards yet.
Really?
So no, he's not in any of the sets. So I don't know if it's like a contract thing, like
Has to be.
with Panini, that he just maybe he didn't sign to them and say like, hey, I don't want any cards. I'm shocked because he is now like a card collector,
Yeah.
especially of like Pokemon cards. So I'm kind of shocked that he hasn't gotten into like getting his own sports card and like autographing them. So it's got to be some contract, issue that he's having. Maybe he just doesn't want one, or maybe he's waiting for them to go somewhere else. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. But damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whose cards would be more popular? Jake or Logan? Probably Logan.
I was gonna say Jake right now.
But yeah, now, but eventually if
Jake
Logan
down the
gets wrestling
road,
cards.
Logan. Yeah, down the road because Logan actually has a better, I think, a better future career. He's also doing a lot of like business stuff too. Obviously with Prime,
Yeah.
he's got his, and then he's got the what the oh, Impulsive podcast too. That's really good.
Oh yeah, I've heard of
Yeah,
it.
he does. So he has a lot of business stuff that could probably make him more relevant down the road. But right now, if Jake like still gets like cards today, he's probably gonna, because he's way more outspoken than Logan is.
All
But
right.
yeah, let's move on. Let's move into the topic we were supposed to talk about last week, and I'm gonna pitch it to you because the two topics we're gonna talk about today are actually ones that you sent me and was like, hey, I think these would be great to talk about on an episode. So do you want me to introduce the topic? Because I don't want to be like, hey, John, go ahead and talk. And then you'd be like,
No, I think I got it. I think I can take care of it a little bit. So yeah, I'm kind of happy that we weren't planning to talk about the Paul Tyson fight, but it kind of does lead into a good segue because I think that what I'm about to say is a good quotable thing in the hobby. So
that might be it might make some people unhappy, but
yeah,
it's
I know.
okay.
But so I had texted you guys in the group chat, I think after our maybe 2 episodes ago, because I was either watching something on YouTube, either listening to the podcast, or doing something cards related. And I thought to myself, and then I texted you guys. So I had said that all collectors in the hobby are investors, but are all investors collectors? And when I had said that to you guys, what I really meant was that everybody who's been in the hobby for a long time started out as like pure collectors, especially us as kids. We're just buying cards to keep them because we love them and we just, I don't know, it's fun collecting. And as the hobby has grown and become way more popular, you start to get so many more people involved who are strictly in it for the investing purposes. Like people who want to buy, I don't know, a full table of cards and flip it within a week. People who want to buy, I don't know, some really rare high end card, raw, grade it, flip it, try to make profit and move on. So I sent that to you guys, and I'm happy that we talked about the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight because, yeah, same thing goes towards the boxing collectors in the hobby. Are these Topps Now cards that they're printing so often? Are they marketed towards collectors or are they marketed towards investors? And I'm going to use that card as an example because if I'm a boxing collector, I don't know if I'm really interested in it, but I know for sure that if you're an investor in sports cards and you want to make a quick buck, the if you buy this Topps Now card and you get one of the numbered cards, I assume that you bought it with the intention to flip it.
Yeah.
If you bought, I don't know how many they sell at a time, like 20 of them, and you're lucky enough to get a numbered card, the people who hit that numbered card, are they keeping it, or is it going to hit eBay within a day? So, like you said, it might be kind of touchy. There might be people who are like, what are you talking about? Like, what the heck? I've been in the hobby for a year. I still have a collection, and I get that. But it's just every time I watch like YouTube videos and stuff of quote unquote
I was
hobbyists,
I was about to get into that too.
yeah, yeah, it makes me question what I would love for like everybody in the hobby, including us, to kind of put out a PC video. Like, hey, these are the cards in my collection. Like, no one would want to watch my Nico Horner Mitch Trubisky video,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like, hell yeah, I want it to be. I want that part of the hobby to gain as much attention as the money does. I want the people who have collections that they've been sitting on for years to expose that part of themselves as a hobbyist so that other people can kind of get behind that and let people know that not every single card you buy has to be for the money. Not every single
Yeah.
card you buy has to be flipped. So I had sent it to you guys and then you were like, "Yep, let's make it a podcast topic." So what's your response, Jason? How do you feel about it?
Well, I feel the same way, and I like that you brought up about the social media videos and like a lot of the hobby influencers because it is a big thing. Like, yes, we all started as collectors. Like that's why this hobby is where it is. It's because of people who paved the way in collecting cards and collecting memorabilia. But obviously, with nowadays, with the way the hobby is growing and the way it's moving, everything is how much money can I make off this card? Can I make money off this card? I'm not buying this because I'm not going to make any money off of it.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of product just sits on the shelves now at Targets and Walmarts because there's no money in it.
Yes.
If you were a collector, you wouldn't care. That stuff should be flying off the shelves, but it's not because there's no value in it. And I think it's more of like a how much value is this card worth, in the future versus, hey, would this be a cool card to keep for my collection? I think I think it's a lot more of maybe certain hobbyists are now saying that they're still collecting, like, oh, I collect this player, I collect that
Yeah.
player, but in the back of your mind, you're still hoping that those cards are gonna make money. Like I think there's a lot of there's some people out there who are buying like certain football players, and they're like, oh well, I'm buying this player because he plays for my favorite team. But let's be real, you're probably hoping that this guy ends up making you some money down the road. So yeah, I think a lot of like what I brought up on a previous episode about a lot of these social media stars in the hobby, buying up these high end cards, like buying up like NT, they're buying up Flawless, they're buying 101s, like whatever 101 they can get their hands on. Technically, yeah, sure, you like to collect 101s, but no, you're investing in 101s. Like that's what you're doing. Like people who I think when people buy NT Flawless, like those high end cards, I don't think they're investing money into those because they know what the value could potentially be down the road.
Yeah.
Like I don't think people are buying like NT cards for the sake of like, hey, this has this really cool patch card from this game used event and it's for my favorite player and I'm keeping it.
Right.
I just don't think that's happening, and I completely 100% agree with you in that sense that yeah, I don't think there's many. And I mean, we saw it back in 2020 when we would see certain people walk into hobby shops
Yeah.
and they would just ask like, "Hey, who's who's the best? Who's the hottest player right now?" And I remember they were like, "Oh, it's Jason Dominguez. Oh, do you guys have any Jason Dominguez?" They're like, "Well, you can buy that set." Like,
Yeah.
wait, what? Like,
What did we
but
just
what you?
witness?
Yeah, you're approaching this hobby from a completely wrong perspective, and like you're gonna end up spending way more money than you possibly could imagine, and probably not gain a lot of value from it. So I think you should. It's almost everybody should approach it from a collector standpoint. They should approach it from buy what's, um, I guess, more attainable. Buy the sets that are more attainable. If you get value out of the card, great. If not, hey, set the cards aside, keep them. Or, like you said, put them in a value bin and go to a local card show and let the kids just flip through them and take the cards and put them right in the binders. That's what I love most about Pokemon cards still.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, Pokemon cards are the perfect example of a card that could be used as an investment item. But if you don't get that investment item, you still have some sweet, sweet cards to collect.
Yes.
Like in my opinion, I think Pokemon cards are the perfect balance. Like especially because like I mean, if you do come across like if you were the the Moonbreon card would be awesome, would be amazing to have as a collector's piece, but it also can make you like $1,000.
Yeah. Everything you said is great. I think something that really like hit home with me while you were talking about all that is what you said about kind of if you approach the hobby as an investor and you're like basically trying to make the biggest bang for your buck always. I think what you said is kind of a good little thought to kind of plant in people's head that you could end up spending a little bit too much money. You could end up being like way into the negatives because you go to a hobby shop, you say, "Hey, what's the who's the hottest player on the market right now?" And last year they're saying, "Oh, CJ Stroud." And you're like, "Okay, where do I get CJ Stroud?" And they're like, "Oh, you could buy a pack of Prism here for $40 or whatever the heck they cost now, and you might get one." And then people are like, "Okay, I'll take 5 of them." And you just spend $200 trying to hit a CJ
Yeah.
Stroud. You rip open
Mm-hmm.
the packs, you get no CJ. So, and now you're stuck negative 200, and the money you spent is just like the amount of money you spend just keeps piling up. So it's important to do what you say. It's important to it's really important to buy the things you love, PC players that you love. But when you were talking about that too, it kind of made me think of the running joke in the hobby where it's like somebody posts, "Hey, I have a card for sale, willing to trade," and then the comments are, who do you PC?" And the reply is, "I PC Mahomes, LeBron, Luca, like
Those aren't
Tom
those
Brady."
aren't
Yeah,
those
I
aren't
PC goats.
PCs.
Exactly.
Like
So,
those aren't PC play. Like no one's PC. People are PCing Mahomes
yeah,
because their career holding him. That's not a
right.
PC. Like you're
Yeah.
not. I mean, sure, there's probably some diehard Kansas City Chiefs fan
Yes,
out
of
there
course.
who's loving the fact that they're a dynasty now. But yeah, no one's PCing Mahomes right now to keep him and never sell him.
Yes,
Like you
exactly.
you PC Duke Snyder
Yeah,
because you like old Topps baseball cards and he's a Hall of Famer.
exactly.
Like he's a legend of the sport. That's why you PC Duke Snyder. No one's PC like you. No one's Tom Brady could be a PC. He still can make you a lot of money. But I think people who are saying that they're PCing like Lamar Jackson or Luca, like active players. I mean, eventually a number's gonna come up to where you're gonna
Let him go.
it's gonna be it's gonna be very hard to not sell the car. Like it has if you're PCing Mahomes right now, that's got to be a tough one.
Yeah, exactly. Same with LeBron and other players who are, especially
Yeah,
players who are active.
LeBron, I can see as a PC because you are going to have those goat type of players who are, or those GOAT type of collectors who are looking for players like that to keep. And PC, that's why a lot of people love, collecting Michael Jordan. That's why a lot of people love collecting LeBron and Tom Brady and all them. But like any current active young player, no, you're not going to PC Lamar Jackson right now, especially if he wins a third MVP, a second one in a row. Like you're not PCing him.
See, yeah, I agree with all of that, and it's just part of the investing bug that has kind of infected everybody in the hobby. And that's like, we're collectors, we're investors at the same time. But another thing that you said is a great point, and people will probably make it as well. Like any card that you buy, you want it to make money. And we all know that. We're not saying that there's people out there who are like strictly just don't care. But my point is that there are cards that I buy still, and I don't care if they make money. There's cards that other people buy still who collect vintage and love vintage, and they don't really care if they make money. We all hope that that happens, but I feel like there's a part of the hobby now that is getting like good social media attention because they're spending four figures, five figures on certain cards, and they flash it across the screen like, "Hey, I just bought this for 20K," and
Yep.
then a week later it's sold on some auction site for 25K, and they move on. So yeah, I'm not
If you're
saying
lucky, if
yeah,
you're lucky that
yeah,
that happens, and I think that's the biggest problem there is because you're chasing the money is
yeah,
what's happening. Like what's happening right now in the hobby is I believe they are chasing the money. You're chasing the cards or the players that you believe are going to make you that much money. Like I'm going to make money off of this player instead of just strictly being a collector, buying the sets that you like to collect. Like we love to collect Bowman mega boxes.
yeah,
That was our thing. And if we got lucky and we're able to get a card that was going to make us money, great. But we bought into Bowman mega boxes versus buying into like hobby boxes at the time because that's what we love to collect.
yeah,
When we know there's sets out there that are better. You know, big league baseball, man.
yeah.
I
God,
was a big league baseball guy. There is zero value to be made in big league baseball unless you were buying it at the time when Shohei Ohtani's rookie card came out or Fernando
right,
Tatis
yeah,
rookie card was out there. There was no money in big league baseball. But I loved collecting it. One, because you can buy a hobby box for, $40
yeah,
and they're like legit baseball cards. They're like
exactly.
real baseball cards. So I think don't chase it. Like don't chase these players that you're seeing everybody dropping thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on. Like realistically, if you really want to chase, just buy them. Just like don't even buy them in the wax either, because like
Yeah,
yeah, man, if you're trying to pull them, like I remember we were when we would go to Jim and Steve's, and I was buying up what 2018 blaster
yeah.
box, like Panini Contender blaster boxes to try to pull
Lamar.
Lamar or Josh Allen or now I'm paying. Well, at the time, I think I only paid like $30 for the boxes or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that, which is crazy. I should have just held them.
yeah,
I
exactly.
should have never even opened them. But I was chasing Lamar instead of just buying a Lamar Jackson rookie card, which is what I ended up doing.
Exactly.
And I paid the same amount of money for two blaster boxes to try to pull his rookie instead of just buying the rookie card for the same price. So it's like I doubled what I paid to try to get one card.
See, yeah, that's why I love what you said. That like, you might, if you're approaching the hobby as strictly an investor, you could end up spending way more money than you hoped, and you could end up being in the negative more often than you hoped. But like, all of this is now triggering another thought slash scare for me. I don't know. Assuming wax prices keep going up, and so we have wax prices going up, plus people in the hobby strictly for investing slash wanting to make money. As both of these things become more true, I think that the amount of people who are buying into wax is going to just almost disappear. I don't see the reason that if you are buying a card to try to make money or you're trying to get in the hobby to make money, everyone that I know or everyone that I can think of, like strategically, logically, always says just buy singles. Don't buy into
Yeah.
wax because you're spending,
Coach Co.
yeah, man, you're spending way
Coach
too
Co
much
was one of
money.
yeah.
You're
Mm-hmm.
spending too much money ripping wax. You're hunting or hoping for one card, and you're going to end up, just like Jason said, spending $500 on two hobby boxes instead of just buying the card for maybe $300 to $400. So,
You said that to me when I was buying the Chilling Reign booster boxes, the
yeah,
Pokemon ones, trying to pull that VMAX Blaziken, the
yeah, man,
alternate art Blaziken, and you were like, "Why don't you just
just buy.
buy the Blaziken?"
Yeah, man, I
Because I think PSA 10s are like, maybe like $400 or something. You were like, you're gonna end up spending that much money on trying to buy, but it's like it's different though.
Pokemon is different. I agree with you there.
Like there's one thing to, but it's I think it's just there's a different feeling when you actually pull it.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
Like so that's what I mean. I think that aspect of the hobby is still going to stay there in terms of wax because Eric says it all the time. Ripping open packs of cards is fun. There's nothing. There's no more like there's no bigger adrenaline drive
Yeah,
than ripping open and then just like every single pack you're like this could be it. This could be it.
yeah,
This
yeah,
could be it. So I think in that aspect like it'll keep people wanting to buy wax, but no, I 100% agree. If you are on the more on the investment side of the hobby, singles, man.
yeah,
Singles, singles, singles. Just buy the player.
yeah,
Buy who you want. Or like we talked about what a episode 2 ago, like buy into the breaks.
yeah.
Buy the
Exactly.
player in a break and then just save your money that way. If that's what you want to do. If you want to go the wax route, probably just do the breaks.
Yeah, that's honestly another. I'm giving away a personal like a hobby secret of mine. Like that's how I approach breaks now. Like let's say, um, so Topps Chrome update just came out with the Skeens stuff, like Skeens rookies, which are going nuts. So I think a Topps Chrome update jumbo box, who knows, it might be $300-400. But if somebody's hosting or I guess running a 10 case break or a 5 case break, I think to myself now, like, would if I was to spend, how much would it cost me to buy 5 cases of Topps Chrome? And it's like in the thousands, maybe tens
Yeah.
of thousands. And I think to myself every time I join a break, especially when I was joining mega box breaks, like when I was buying Dominguez spots, would I would I rather spend the $5,000 to buy one case of Bowman, or can I just put maybe $2,000 if people are out there spending that kind of money into buying a spot inside a more case break to hit the player? And that's how I approach breaks now. Like when I bid on stuff towards the end, I'm like, this spot went for $200. Well, I could have spent $200 on five, not even five. It would have been 4 megaboxes, maybe three
Mm-hmm.
now. 3 megaboxes, I would have spent $200 and I wouldn't have hit anything. But
Yeah.
now I spent $200 on one spot in a 100 box break, and I have a way better chance of hitting a card that I really want.
Yeah. For the one player that actually matters in the entire set.
Exactly. Or the one player who
Yeah.
matters to me. Like what the hell, I still bid on Nico spots and breaks. I still bid on PCA spots and breaks. Like PCA
Wait,
and
you're
Shota,
how you been on Nico spots?
even if they're not rookie cards, I still want some good Nico parallels.
Oh man.
Yeah. But they go, that's what I'm saying. They go for like $5, maybe $20 max in a 100 box break.
I
It's
mean, are
like what?
you at least looking up the set, the
Yeah.
checklist and making
Oh,
sure he has autos?
yeah, sometimes I do,
Oh,
sometimes I
okay.
don't.
Oh
Even if
boy.
there's no autos, I'll take the parallels. But that's what I'm getting at here. Like, is
See
anybody
that?
else
See
doing
right
it?
there. That's the collector. That's
Yeah,
the collector, and that's what we're talking about. That soul. What you just said is like the entire reason why we're having this discussion right now is because you are still buying into like Cubs breaks for non Nico rookie cards.
yes,
Like that's
exactly.
what you're doing. Yeah.
100%. And I feel like that's kind of not a common thing. But I know I'm wrong. I know that there are people out there who do the same thing, which is great. But the stuff you see on social media usually it makes me feel very Jason-y. It makes me feel very the hobby is getting too investy. Too much money is being thrown around, and it's not It's great. It's good to see. Obviously, it leads to growth. It leads to more people with eyes on the hobby. But I also want more exposure for the collectors in the hobby. That's all
Yeah.
I'm trying to get at.
And see, and that's another thing too that because you, a little bit earlier, you were talking about like vintage cards and stuff. And that was another topic that we wanted to talk about because I forgot even what like sparked the conversation in our group chat, like how we got onto like buying like vintage cards. And then you asked the question, can you solely operate a sports card business based just around vintage cards? And it kind of gets to the point of like, well, yeah, like are vintage cards more so on the collector side of the hobby, or are they on the investor side of the hobby? Because you can make a ton of money on vintage, vintage baseball, football, basketball. Well, really, vintage baseball is kind of like, in my opinion, like the best when it comes to vintage cards.
Agree.
But I don't know if you can like necessarily operate a business solely based on buying vintage cards. Like in the hobby now, right now, I don't think vintage cards can compete against ultra modern.
So I think that could be a hot take or a cold take, but it's a take for sure. And in my opinion, you can run a hobby business strictly on vintage. I think that the way to do it based on, I don't know, how I would try to operate, I would unfortunately go into the investment side of the hobby that we're talking about earlier. You have to buy vintage cards with the intention to flip them almost instantly. And if you are buying raw vintage, you have to buy them with the intent to grade them and then flip them. It's going to take a little bit more time because obviously um, vintage cards are not as like all of these players in vintage are not playing. They don't get any sort of media hype. They don't get any sort of
Yeah.
ESPN replays, top 10 plays, all that kind of stuff. You're relying solely on the players' I
Legacy.
guess, legacy. Yeah, players'
Yeah.
legacy, players' reputation, all of that. So it gets really detailed. If you want to go full on vintage, you can start looking for cards that have really low pops, really low population reports, and high grades. Any card from the 60s, 70s, or 80s. 80s might be pushing it, but any of those early 50s, 60s cards. If you find a 70s, if you find a card graded in a PSA 10 that's pop 2 or 3, my God, there's people out there who build registry sets and
Mm-hmm.
they will pay almost anything to have that
They will
card
pay top dollar for that card.
because they know
Yeah.
that there aren't many in existence. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think you can run an entire hobby business strictly on vintage. You'll just have to do a lot of research and kind of get to know each set, know each player,
Yeah.
and that's what I was just gonna kind of get at there, and kind of tying into my Nico thing. Even if there were nobody, there's people out there who strictly want to build sets, and they want to build sets in high grade. They want to build the 1975 top set in PSA 9 or better, which is
Yeah.
very difficult to do. And if you get some high number card of some reliever or some bench player in a PSA 9, you may have never even heard of them, but you grade it, it gets a 9, and you're sitting on 4 figures, maybe even pushing 5 figures, depending on the pop. So it's a winded answer, and I have also kind of defending myself. Every freaking table at the national, every other table is vintage. So people, I don't know if they're still doing it, but all of these people who are into vintage, they got them somewhere. They're still getting them, and they have to be making money. I'm assuming, or they're just super
Yeah.
rich and they're sitting
I,
on it.
I was just about to say, I think it might be more so they just have the funds to be able to keep it going, because I don't know if you can necessarily like I mean, there's not like when we go to the national, we talked about it 1,000 times. The crowds around the ultra modern tables versus the crowds around the vintage tables is a drastic difference.
Yes.
There's not this massive crowd standing around these vintage tables and just trying to get any type of like, hey, are you buying? Or like, no
Yeah.
one's doing that. Which, I mean, it really makes me go like, I need to get away from ultra modern. Like, I need to
Right.
get away from ultra modern, and I just need to collect like vintage stuff. Like, I need to go back to PCing cards, and that's being like, stick to like we say, stick to the jelly business for like ultra modern things like that. I would love, but like I said in the group chat, I would love if we cracked into the vintage side of sports cards. But here's my thing about it and why I say I don't think you can necessarily do it in today's hobby is because one, if the sets aren't open already, pretty much all the cards have been ripped. If they
Right.
haven't been ripped, you're paying like $1 million to rip that box.
Exactly.
Unless you're buying into junk wax and now you're not even in the vintage era anymore. But if
Mm,
you're looking at the true vintage era, like you said, like 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe even very early 80s, those you're going to be dropping. Like what would you rather drop 10 grand on a vintage baseball box or 10 grand on on a case of Prism or whatever? Like
right.
everyone's going to go to the Prism. We would probably be like,
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough
I don't
decision. I
know,
might
man. I don't know.
let's rip some
But
50s wax.
that's the thing. So like you have to search and search and search for great quality vintage raws. Like that's the problem. And I just think that like one, if do you have the time?
Right.
Like I wouldn't trust, like no offense to any eBay sellers who do sell vintage cards on eBay. I wouldn't buy it because I need to physically see this card in person and look at the quality and now you have to go and look at, okay, well, what does a PSA 3 cost? What does a PSA 4 go for? What does a PSA 5 go for? In ultra modern, all you're doing is you're looking at what a 10 sells for and what maybe a 9 sells for. Like
Nice.
if you get an 8, then you're like,
Yeah.
damn,
I
that sucks. But
exactly.
in vintage, you have to look at all these because now your vintage raw, like I mean, say you're looking at, I think what does a raw Jackie Robinson like rookie go for? Like what's not the leaf one. I'm not talking about
Still.
the leaf one. I'm talking like what, like a 50, what a
Yeah.
54 top. What was the
Yeah,
one?
54 taps. I don't know.
What is
Probably
I don't
now
know,
at least
probably like
100.
four. I was gonna say probably what, $300-$400
Yeah,
if it's in decent quality. Like
exactly.
if it's decent looking card, you're probably spending like a few $100s on that card. But now I have to look at, well, what does a 3 look like?
Yeah.
Does it look like this card? And now am I going to at least break even on it or am I going to lose? So now, okay, I have to at least get a 5.
Yep.
Like I have to get a 5. So now I have to find a vintage card that looks like a 5 and then hope that it still grades a 5. Like it is a very time consuming thing. It's not just as easy as rip
Yes.
this one. Oh, straight out of the pack. Here you go, PSA.
Yeah.
And I get a 9. Like there's a lot of work that goes into doing the vintage, which I would love. I would do the work.
Right.
I would do it because we love collecting. We would do this because we love baseball and we love collecting. But I just don't know if you like necessarily have the time to do it. And is there
Exactly.
enough of those cards out there? Like, can you find those cards out there? Like, because now you really have to search for specific dealers and vendors who are selling those caliber of cards and then get it for a decent price so where you can actually make value off of it.
Yeah. Beautifully said. All of that. I completely agree with a lot of that. Yeah, that was a lot. Good job, Jason. Yeah, like I said, it's a lot of work, and like you said, it's a lot of work to kind of be strictly vintage, and it's also very time consuming because, like you said, I love what you said that like even PSA 3, PSA 4, PSA 5, you're like, oh hell yeah, I bought this card raw thinking it would get a 3 and it came a 5, and now I made a good chunk of money. But if you do that, trying to do that with modern, oh my god, if you got a PSA 5, you're like writing a hate letter to PSA,
Yeah,
wondering what the hell happened.
you're taking that as well. I pulled up eBay just to start looking at vintage. I don't know why I was doing this. I was looking at Butterbean autos the other day.
Butterbean.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
I don't know why, but the first car that I recently viewed was a Butterbean.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so
Sorry.
but kind of going back to what you said about the national and how the tables at the modern shows or the modern tables are always swarmed. That kind of made me try to think of a way to defend my vintage brethren here. I think that most of the people who are going to the modern tables, they're either going to be value bin hunting or they're either there to kind of, I don't know, flip, buy, sell, trade on, just kind of take up time and do yada, 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 who knows what. And while I was thinking about that, I thought to myself, how many vintage cards do you think get sold at the National? Like total number of cards versus money, and then compare that to modern cards versus money. If somebody sells one 1954 Topps Jackie Robinson raw and they make $400 to $500, how many modern cards do you think get sold to equal that? So what I'm getting at here is vintage people who are operating in the hobby, you don't really need to have thousands of cards available. You just kind of need to get the right ones.
You
And
have to
if
have the right ones, yeah.
yeah, so you don't have to have stacks of cards, 4 rows of cards, I don't cases full of cards. You just need to get the right cards. You need to get them either graded or raw, and you can make a good chunk of money just making sure that you're kind of doing your own quality control and you don't really have to worry about massive crowds. So
Yeah.
now this episode is bad for my disease. I want to go to a card show now and just kind of
Yeah, you do.
shoot the breeze with vintage
Yeah.
collectors and look at some vintage cards, buy some raw vintage. Because here's another thing that we haven't even talked about. We haven't talked about the value of the cards over time. Especially in Bowman, because we are hardcore Bowman collectors, there are way too many cards that we have bought that have lost value and they're never going to get that value back.
Yeah.
But when it comes to vintage, almost if you're doing the right research and you're buying the right people, and like I said earlier, even if you're
That
not,
price is going to stay there.
it's probably going to stay there and it's probably going to go up because I've told you guys about it. I don't know if it's true. I have no proof of it, but as time goes on, like Jason said, the amount of available boxes to be ripped of vintage will be gone. They'll all be open. They'll all be either there might be one or two cases left sealed and nobody's going to open it because they don't want to. But every other card is going to be found and there aren't going to be any left. And as the population reports go up and up and up and the amount of high grade cards stay the same or barely go up at all, there's going to be more rarity. There's going to be more draw to those cards. And I think that vintage cards are going to retain value way better than some modern cards are. There's definitely going to be modern cards that outperform them, but in my opinion, the ratio is way better and way more in favor of vintage. So again, it's doable. And
Yeah.
especially if you have the funds to kind of invest in the short term and the long term, I'm way more comfortable in my long term vintage investments than I am
Yeah.
my long term modern investments.
So just going back on that 1954 Topps Jackie Robinson.
Cool card.
So a raw one sold on November 8th for $363.88. So that was just raw. And then if you look at the actual graded ones, so ones like an SGC one goes for $195.50. Okay, you can pretty much determine what a one's gonna. I mean, it's gotta be.
Ones are very bad.
That card's gotta be falling apart. But then if you look at say SGC3, so an SGC3 of that same card sold on November 14th for $447.75.
Hey?
So if you can do enough research to where you can kind of look at the quality of a card and determine if it's a 3 or not, 3 or better, buying a card at, $380 and potentially it grades a 3 with SGC, and now you're turning around and selling that card for $447, like it's doable. But how many cards do you have to
Exactly.
Not like you just said too, not every single dealer is going to have a 1954 Topps Jackie Robinson card. And the people who are going to have them,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're necessarily going to be able to pry it from their hands for a reasonable price in order to be able to comfortably profit on this card. Because a 4 though, so a PSA 4 sold on November 17th for $727. So if you,
Just double your money right there.
you just double your money on but there's a risk. And like you said,
Absolutely.
it's just, not everybody. So you have to it's like the Ricky Henderson
Oh, yeah.
rookies, man. There are a lot of people have bought those Ricky Henderson rookie cards. It's tough.
Yeah,
Like
super
that's
tough.
a tough one. That's a tough one because super high grade is very expensive, and then you get into like an 8 or lower, and then that price just goes up.
Yeah,
I mean, you just now screwed yourself. So I mean, I like the man. Can we as Jelly buy a raw Jackie 1954 tops rookie?
it's a cool card,
Or
right?
not rookie, I'm sorry, not rookie,
Yeah,
but just 1954 top. I mean, also not to mention the 1954 tops set is one of the most iconic baseball sets out there.
yeah, absolutely.
So that's another thing too when it comes to baseball. Not only just finding or just vintage cards in general. Not only just finding the players who are still valuable because you're finding the legends of the sport, but there are certain sets out there that are going to be that much more valuable because of the set in general. It doesn't even matter who the player is
Yep,
because, like you brought up earlier, people like to buy collect complete sets in certain grades, and yeah, man. So I'm down. Like
exactly. That's what
like
our
I am down.
episodes have become.
Even an SGC 4. So an SGC 4.5 sold on November 7th for $540. So if you can find a raw Jackie for around $360 and kind of determine if it gets a 4, at least a 4, I think you're safe.
That's what I mean,
I
man.
think
Like,
a 3 in an SGC you would take a little loss on it. But not like detrimental where it's like, oh man, like, sending in an ultra modern NT card that you just paid, 2 grand on, and then it comes back a 6 and you're like, oh boy,
exactly.
So man,
That's
I
my
think we
point.
should,
Yeah, it's so
John,
bad. Every episode, we're
John,
switching up the
get on
jelly
it, man.
business. Yeah, man.
Oh, this happens in the chat like on a
Oh,
weekly
yeah,
basis.
on a weekly basis, we're like, hey
But
guys,
honestly,
let's
I
buy
truly
Butterbean. We need Butterbean cards.
I truly think a PSA 5,
See,
what it's so $900. And
that's what
this
I'm
was on
saying.
October 29th, but that's in the old school PSA slab too. So that probably could have added a little bit of value to it.
So,
Um,
for people who are interested in buying vintage on eBay, like the most trusted seller in the vintage community is
oh
Greg Morris
man.
cards, as Jason is now obsessed with vintage
No,
PSA
so
cards.
this one it's sold raw by Probstein. So same 1954 tops Jackie Robinson. It sold for raw $610. Man, it looks good.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like
Like it looks good.
yeah,
Like compared to a lot of the other ones that you see,
bingo.
who it looks really good. Like that's probably definitely 5 or more. Like for
That's
sure.
that's what I was getting at. Like Greg Morris cards, they have an eBay page and they put out their potential
Oh yeah.
grade on the
That's
cards.
at least a 5.
But that's what I'm saying. Like if you get into vintage like you should, you start noticing things like that. You start noticing like, hey, that's the beauty of it. You find the card raw and you can quickly jump to either a PSA 3 or 4 and like, hey, this looks better than a 3 or 4, or this looks worse than a 3 or 4. I'm gonna like this is probably worth this much. So you can kind of make your own margin essentially. You can kind of
Yeah.
realize that I'm willing to spend this much because I think it's gonna get a PSA 3 or 4. I'm gonna expect the worst, hope for the best, so I'll offer a little bit lower slash what I can make on a PSA 3. And the more cards you see, the more you understand. But back to what you said about Ricky Henderson, for people who don't understand, the 1980 Topps set has Ricky Henderson's rookie, and Ricky Henderson's rookie comes with so many printing issues that I think
Yeah.
the pop on it is less than 30. There are less than 30 PSA 10 Ricky Henderson rookies, and they've absolutely graded at least 30,000. There's so many Ricky Henderson rookie cards in existence, and the amount of 9s and 10s is extremely low. So the more rookie cards you look at, you start to realize, like, okay, yep, this one has the kind of dusty feature on it that looks faded. It's off center on the back. It's off center on the front. There's like a bubble mark from the ink. There's so many things you start to pick up on, and you can apply that to every other vintage card. You're like, hey, I know what a 1954 Topps Duke Snyder looks like, and I know what it looks like when it's in a high grade. This card looks like it's got some good potential, and they're selling it raw. Let's take a chance here. And
Yeah.
it's really risky doing it on eBay, but at the same time, hey man, there's it's nice. It's so nice that like, hey, I can get a PSA 5 and I'm happy. Versus nowadays, if I get a PSA 5, I'm like depressed. I want to crack it. I want to get angry at who I bought it from. I want to get angry at this. I want to get angry at that. But there's money to be made in vintage, short term and long term. And
Yeah.
Jelly Cards is on its way to
I
being a
just, I
vintage
think,
business.
yeah, I just think, even just going with this, Ricky Henderson card, I mean, fives are $46. A four is in the 30s. Six sold for 52.
Yeah.
But then if you're looking at buying a raw it goes for like $57 if it's in somewhat of a decent grade. I mean, I saw one sell for, and it looks really good. So it sold for $201 raw.
Because
Like
people
some
want that
raws are
10
selling for, yeah, so
or
some
9.
raws are selling for $26, $46, $36. If you're buying a raw Ricky Henderson for $26, I'm telling you right now, you might as well just PC that card.
Oh, God. Damn,
Send
Jason.
it in to get graded and PC it, because if it's selling for $26, like that's my thing. Like vendors who buy into vintage cards and that's what their business is based around, they know what these cards are worth. They know what the value is in certain grades. So if you're buying one for $26, like, yeah, you understand that you got it, that card's probably going to come back. You'd be lucky if it came back a four.
All right.
But that's what you're looking at. If you're looking at some, I think you said it, like you base your vintage card buying around what is a three go for?
Yeah.
And then you break, and I think that's a good place to like
Like a
look
good
at. Just,
base.
yeah, it's a good base. What does a three go for? Does this look like it can at least get a three? Because a three is probably going to break me even.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's usually how it goes for
Yeah.
me. Because of the investment bug that's infected all of us, I've kind of, as I look back on my collection now, I want higher grades. I want higher grade vintage so that I want one day to be like, yo, this
Do you have
guy,
a Jackie Robinson
I have
54 tops?
I do. Yeah, I have that card.
Of course you do. Why? I don't even know why I asked.
You want to
Of
know?
course.
Oh man, here we go. So how I got the card, kind of small story here. When the movie 42 came out, I love that movie. I was like,
Yep.
holy crap, I need Jackie Robinson cards. The next day or the next weekend, we went to the shop in Addison. I was like, hey, I need Jackie cards. And he's, Ken was there at the time. I remember it vividly, which is kind of pathetic maybe. But we went around to the other side of the showcases where we're like, so on the left side of the shop it was mostly modern, a little bit of vintage, but on the right side of the shop there was more vintage and like vintage sets, complete sets. And we went around to the other side and there was the 54 Jackie in there. I gotta say I got it for like maybe $75, less than that maybe.
Raw?
Yeah, and I graded it and I think it got a 4 or maybe a 5.
Oh.
Yeah, so I bought
Did you
that card.
you still have it right now?
Yeah, it's not here, but
Damn.
I have it. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Well, that was,
look,
I mean,
yeah,
when the movie came out, we were in college still.
yeah, yeah. God, that's been a while. So, but
That had to have
anyway,
been what, like 2013 or something?
maybe,
2012?
yeah, something like that. But
Wow.
that's just,
Damn. Wow.
yeah, man. It's like if if you're in it long enough, you kind of just you have these stories just piling up, and you just have all these like cards you've been sitting on, especially vintage, and they are worth way more than you ever thought they could be. And in my defense for us collectors out there, you really didn't even care what they were going to be worth. I just wanted a Jackie card because I saw
Yeah.
42, and I was like, hell yeah, man, Jackie Robinson's a badass. He's the best, and I need some cards in his cards in my collection. So yeah, winded answer,
That's
but
awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
you bringing it up made me think of it, and it applies to. I mean, it's way less common nowadays because of where we are in the hobby, but I think it's still possible. You could buy a vintage card raw, grade it, and if you want to sell it right away, you can. But even if you don't, like, find comfort in having a Hall of Fame rookie card in your collection. I mean, if you don't want to call it a collection, at least you have it in your possession. And in my opinion, as time goes on, there's no way anyone's gonna ever not want a Jackie Robinson card. At
No,
least I hope.
no,
If
no.
that ever
I don't
happens, I'll
think.
be sad.
Yeah, I don't think, and that's the perfect thing about vintage cards, and we can end there. Um, the one thing about vintage cards is someone's always gonna want it. I don't know, but you know what?
Me.
My um my wrestling buddy, Pro King Wrestling, he brought it up to me. He got a, PSA 10 Ricky Steamboat
Yeah,
from WWE, and
that's
it's
awesome.
a Prism one, but it was numbered out of 10, auto of Ricky Steamboat, graded a PSA 10.
Sick.
And so he was talking to me yesterday. You know, he wants to sell it, but he doesn't know exactly where and what to do. He doesn't know if he should put it on auction. He doesn't know if he should just try to do a buy now. He doesn't know if he should try to sell it on Facebook Marketplace, if he should do eBay. So he was asking me a bunch of questions about it, and I told him, I said, well, I mean, you can sell that card now. Like, he's a legend of, he's a legend of the business. You know, people, it's not Roman Reigns,
Right.
like
Yeah.
where it's like, so I told him, I was like, well, maybe even wait until Mania. You can wait into WrestleMania to try to sell the card then, when the hype of wrestling is really picking up. And, what he said is, eventually he was like, I don't want to hold on for it too long, because eventually one day, all the people who care about, Ricky Steamboat are eventually going to not be here anymore.
Oh God.
I mean, which is the truth, kind of. And it was kind of surprising to me, or not surprising, but it kind of was a little eye opening to me, because I'm like, he's kind of right. Is this newer generation of collectors that are coming in right now? Eventually, are they gonna want a Jackie Robinson card? Like, is that gonna kind of end with our generation?
Oh God.
Because we grew up with the 42 movie. Like, we know about, like, Jackie Robinson and things. But are, like, kids these days, these new generations that are coming up, are they gonna care about, Ricky Henderson? Are they gonna care about Jackie Robinson? Are they gonna care about Walter Payton? Are they even gonna know who Walter Payton is?
They will. They should.
And is it going to be better for us then to jump in and swoop up all these cards?
Oh my God, that's so bad. Some little
Yeah.
kid. I know your grandpa left you all these cards, but you don't want them. Give them to
Nah,
us.
there's no value to be made.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
We're sitting in a chair made of money.
Yeah. Petting our Persian. Yeah. But anyway, so that's a really great ending there, because
Yeah.
that's another like cliffhanger. Are the current is the movement in the hobby going to be away from vintage? Is the people who are interested in vintage going to continue to stay the same? Is it going to decline, or is it going to grow? I think it's either going to stay the same or grow. I don't. I am a vintage collector, a vintage lover, and I fully intend that if I have kids, I'm going to infect them with my vintage loving bug. And there's no way I'm going to let any of my kids grow up not knowing who Walter is, not knowing who Jordan is, not knowing who Brooks Robinson is, not knowing who Ricky Henderson
Duke
is,
Snyder.
Duke Snyder. All of the legends of each sport, I think, have kind of cemented their legacies, and they're people to look at for as an example of what you want to be in a sport. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to stay, but I don't know. It's you're onto something there. Who really cares or knows about Ricky Steamboat in the next 20 years? Who cares? Who knows or cares about Nico Horner in the next 20 years?
Who knows
Nico's
and cares about Nico right now?
Yeah, exactly. Besides me and some Cubs fans. So yeah, man, it's a good ending there, and I guess I'll take it away with our final
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah. You can wrap it up.
Final thoughts. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Really love this podcast episode. This was a good episode. We started off with the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul / Tops Now drama that's going on in the hobby. And then we talked about what Jason and I really wanted to talk about last week, in that I'm really curious to hear everyone's opinion. I think that all collectors in the hobby are investors, but my fear is that not all investors in the hobby are collectors. So it's probably wrong. It's a cold take. I'm sure that all the people who invest in the hobby are like, what the hell are you talking about? I still have a collection. My point is, I want to see the collection. I want to see like some high high spending, money throwing collector be like, investor, say something along the lines of like, here's my, I don't know, Cole Kmet collection. Here's my, who knows, some offensive tackle collection. I don't know, some cool cards I want to see that other people in
Yeah.
the hobby don't usually display. And that's what I really
You want to
want the
see
hobby to promote.
Ken Kendrick's collection where
Dude,
you got to pry those
yeah,
cards out of his hands just to get
ex-
him to sell
exactly. That's what I want the hobby
them.
to never lose sight of. So that's all I'm saying there. I'm not saying that in a negative way. So, and then after that, we dove into the vintage part of the hobby. Jason kind of brought it up, slash, we brought it up in the group chat. Can you run a modern hobby business strictly on vintage? So I think we hit on some major topics. I would love to hear everybody's thoughts. That's exactly what our podcast tries to promote. It's just healthy discussion about the hobby and where we think it is, where it was, where it's going to go. So please reach out. Reach out to us on social media, on Instagram and X, aka Twitter, and YouTube now. It's Jelly Cards, JELICARDS. We got a follow on Whatnot the other day, so we're on Whatnot too. We just have to, your boy here needs to be more active on it and get us some sale cards, but you can find us there. And of course, we have not gained any ratings since our last episode, but you can listen to the Jelly Cards podcast on both Spotify and Apple. Please, if you enjoy the podcast, leave us a rating, leave us a review. We love seeing those. We love hearing about them. So thank you, everybody. We won't get to record by
Next week.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So happy Thanksgiving. Extremely thankful for Jelly Cards. Extremely thankful
Yep.
for my co-host over there. Extremely thankful for everybody in the hobby, and hope we all have an awesome holiday. And as always, keep spreading the love of this hobby from your friends at Jelly Cards.